This is Samsara. She's a Rival 32. I've had her for 4 years. In fact, she's my second Rival 32 because I had one back in the 80s, early 90s. That was Largo. She was 1975. And when I decided to buy another, what I would call proper boat, I wasn't looking for a Rival 32. Because they had a particular disadvantage. They had an accommodation arrangement with a dinette on this side and two very narrow bunks. And if you wanted to get a decent kip in harbour, you had to empty everything out of the front of the boat into the cockpit and sleep up there. And so I was looking for maybe a Rival 36 or Vancouver 34, something like that. And this one came up on the search on the internet, and I looked at the layout and I said, well, that's not a Rival 32, because as you see, we got decent sized berths on both sides, no silly dinette arrangement, little table. I thought, well, that's perfect. It can't be a Rival 32, but it was. Now, I haven't discovered yet why this one is different. I've been back to 1, 2, 3 previous owners. I'm working my way back. The next previous owner, if anybody knows him, is a guy called Tony Sears, who used to be a doctor working on the oil rigs, and I'm looking for him. Maybe he can tell me. I suspect that she was actually built this way, maybe home completed or to special order. I don't know, but she's perfect. Now, the other thing about the Rival 32 is they are the most fantastic seaboats. If you are ever in a rough sea, this is the boat you want to be in. Because the way I like to describe it is she sort of lies down in the sea. She just sort of becomes a part of it and doesn't get thrown about. She just moves with the water. Nobody quite knows why that is. Maybe it's just luck. Because the guy who designed her was an amateur. And he was an engineer, but he just liked designing boats for fun. And he came up with the Rival, and they were a big success. And they did the 32. Well, they started with the 31, 32, 34, 38, 41, and then he came up with the 36. So the whole family of them, and they've all got a distinctive look to them. And I reckon the prettiest is the 32. A lot of people would say the 34 is a better sailing boat, certainly go better to windward, but you've got another 30 centimetres of depth on your keel, which makes it quite a deep keel. And for a cruising boat, this is 1.5 metres, which is, I wouldn't really want more than that. And she sails perfectly well enough for me. The other thing is they've got fabulous wide side decks, because you want to be able to turn round on the side decks, don't you? You don't want a little thing where it's, as soon as you get your foot across it, you haven't got room. And it's because of the way they designed the coach roof. We've got a sort of low coach roof. And the other thing about this boat is that normally you would have lockers all the way up to the deck, and that shuts down the size of the cabin. It makes it cramped, whereas this way you can see all the way to the hull on both sides. So you've actually got, I think it's 3 meters of space one side to the other, and you don't have to open doors to get at everything. So no, I'm tickle pink, absolutely tickle pink with her. Well, I'm a single-handed sailor because I'm completely incapable of telling people what to do. They never made me a prefect at school, for instance. It started then, and I can't tell anybody what to do. I'd far rather go and do it myself. And I'm very content with my own company, so I am obviously just destined to be a single-handed sailor. And I like long distances. That could be anything from 48 hours to 6 weeks. And I arrive somewhere, very glad to arrive, wonderful to go to sleep and not have to set an alarm, and have a good dinner. but after 2 or 3 days I'm ready to go again. So I'm constantly on the move. What I do find is that it's necessary to have a reason to go somewhere, because the world is full of people who've arrived, particularly somewhere like Panama. They've crossed the Atlantic, they've done the Caribbean, they've arrived in Panama, and one or two or three things happens. One is that it's all hot and complicated and bothersome, and they haven't got the washing machine, they miss the grandchildren. A great friend of mine who gave up everything, and his dream was to retire on a boat. He was a doctor, and he spent all his time sitting in the waterfront bar arguing about the NHS with the other doctors, while his wife sat with all the wives saying how much they missed the grandchildren, and they came back. So if you haven't got a reason to go somewhere, it's very easy just to stay put. So I write about it, I have my blog, and I go places in order to write about them. And, you know, I used to be a newspaper reporter, so I've been writing about stuff all my life, and I actually enjoy it. So I will sit here with a little laptop on my knees, feet up on the other berth, and have to set an alarm to remind myself to have a look around, because otherwise I sort of get a bit obsessed with what I'm writing and I don't remember to sail a boat, which can be really awkward sometimes. But that's what I do, and it's been a lifelong ambition, and it's turning out to be every bit as good as I hoped it would be.
And does this include the winter as well?
Pretty much. I keep on sailing because I don't want to stop, so I keep on sailing until it gets up to Christmas. Then in previous years I've gone home for Christmas and then back on the boat, and I would find myself in a snug little creek. Walton Backwaters is perfect, and I'd sit out the rest of the winter there with a big sack of charcoal. I've got a little charcoal heater there. It's going to poison me one day with carbon, was it monoxide? That's right. It keeps setting off the carbon monoxide alarm, so I took the batteries out. My son is absolutely appalled at this, but you know, he's younger. Anyway, in March or something, when the days get a bit longer, I'll be off again. So it's about 9 months of the year. But this year is different. I'm setting off. We are now in September, so I'm going to be going not quite in September, but I'll be going in the next few weeks to the Azores, Madeira, Canaries, possibly the Cape Verdes, and then across the Caribbean, and then come back next summer, and that'll be a sort of trial run to see if I need a proper fridge and things like that, and then do it again, but next time go through Panama into the Pacific, and off we go. Palm trees, blue seas, all that kind of stuff.
And a blog.
Oh, and the blog. Keep the blog going. The blog has been a huge success. People like it, and it's spawned a book, of course, and it's quite a little community, the followers of the blog. Yeah, I'm very proud of it. Right, well, when I had Largo, my first rival, I did the single-handed transatlantic race, and the qualifying race for that is the Azores and back. So I did that twice, and on one occasion I had a very clever idea of going due south and then turning right. This was a bad idea, and I ended up being becalmed for about 3 days, something like 500 miles west of Lisbon. And I sat there, and to amuse myself I got out a notebook and I started making a list of all the modifications I would do to the boat to make her into my perfect cruising boat. And I'd love to know what happened to that notebook, because just about everything I wrote down has already been done with this boat. It's as if somebody had had the same experience. They got becalmed, they thought, what do we really want to do with this boat? So the first thing is to have 2 proper single bunks instead of a dinette which you can turn into a double. That means that the forecastle, the front end of the boat, is the shed. I've got everything up there. The dinghy's up there. I've got a bicycle up there, would you believe? All the clubber lives up there. And then I've got a hatch in the middle of the cabin, because otherwise they do tend to be a bit dark, because they've got small windows, which is very good in a big sea. You don't want to get your big window smashed. And this one opens forwards, and the forehatch opens backwards. So whichever way the wind's blowing, you're going to get a draft into the boat. Then they've installed a removable inner forestay, so I can set a second jib, which is really, really useful thing to do. And I've got an Aries self-steering, which is what I had on Largo, which I reckon is the best. The hydrovane people would say, yes, but our self-steering is an auxiliary rudder. And that is a fine thing if you have a wheel steering, and wheel steering tends to be more complicated, more things go wrong with it. If you've got tiller steering, then the only real thing that can go wrong is that an orca can come and bite off your rudder, which of course does happen. So I'm not too worried about losing that, fingers crossed. And the thing about the Aries is that it steers with the boat's rudder, not an auxiliary rudder, which means it has much more leverage, and it is as tough as old boots. I mean, it's made of cast aluminium, and they survive anything. And this one is probably as old as the boat, which means it's getting on for 50 years. And it's the lift-up version, which I would say is the best one, because you can get the whole thing out of the water, and that stops it clonking around when it's not working and the waves bash it.
This is your home then, isn't it?
This is home, yeah. I mean, when I was 11 years old, I went and saw Francis Chichester at the local yacht club, and he was talking about winning the first transatlantic race in 1960. And I came out of that wanting to do the same thing. And it took me an awfully long time, from the age of 11 to 69, I think 68 when I bought this boat. Maybe because it took so long to get here that I appreciate it so much. And so I really do spend pretty much all the time on the boat. I go home at Christmas. I should be going home for the family skiing holiday. But my children are pretty much grown up. The youngest one is just off to university now. And the other Christmas, we were all sitting around the table after dinner one night, and my wife said, well, what are everybody's plans? Because we reached that stage. It used to be, who's doing cubs and things like that, but now it's who's going around the world, who's going to spend a year in Holland. My daughter's doing that, things like that. And everybody looked at me, and I said, well, what I'd really like to do is to go and see one of my grown-up sons in New Zealand. And once you get to New Zealand, you might as well come back the other way, which means you've gone around the world. And, well, they said go for it. So that's what I'm going to do. Not immediately. We'll do the little circuit of the Atlantic first. And then I'll push off and gradually get myself all the way around. Then who knows? Because I'm planning to do this for years to come.
So that's another book.
Yeah. Because the other thing about it is that when I was 66, I ended up in hospital because I had banged my elbow trying to sail a laser. Now, you could say that 66-year-old men should not be sailing lasers. They are designed for teenagers, really. And I was a very bad laser sailor. But I banged my elbow, ended up in hospital. And I thought, this is ridiculous. This sort of thing happens to old people. And I went to the doctor, and he said, well, you are getting on. And I won't say what I thought of saying to him, but yours was one of the words. And I thought, I'm only 66, I'm not old. And so I haven't been to see the doctor since then. And I discovered a natural health preparation which keeps me going, and I reckon it'll keep me going for another 30 years. And so that's on the blog as well. And it's amazing the number of sailors who read the book who say, well, I'm your age and I've got arthritis, or I've got failing eyesight, or whatever it is. You notice I don't wear glasses anymore. I started wearing glasses at the age of 5 and did until about a couple of years ago. Don't anymore. Anyway, these people, they send me emails and say, I'm your age, and I'm having to give up sailing because I'm getting old. And I put them onto this stuff, and with any luck it'll give them a few more years. I would say 20, 30 more years. I'm planning to, my ambition, and now I've said it on camera, I'm going to have to do it, aren't I? My ambition is, in my 100th year, to sail single-handed, non-stop, around the world, and set the record for being the oldest person to do so. So, what am I, 72 now, so I've got a little while to go. But it'll be interesting to see if I manage it, won't it?
So there's more in the old dog then?
I hope so.